us today. And I think we still have a little bit of time for Q&A. So if anybody in the audience has any questions, I'm going to be happy to answer anything except, will there be a beta? And we're not going to, someone was going to ask that, so don't use up a question on that.
Yeah, if you look around, there should be volunteers with microphones, hopefully. So if you have a question, put your hand up. Right. Bex?
Do we have mics?
Yeah, volunteers with microphones, anyone? Okay, let's go. This chap in the front row, just chat out your question and we'll sort it out there. Can you confirm whether or not the faces will actually be good in Halo 4?
Honestly, I think that our facial animation and full motion capture technology is really good this time. We did, more importantly than just the sort of fidelity of the faces, which is, I think, excellent, is the fact that this time everyone who was acting in scenes in full motion capture gear was acting together in the same scenes. So what that does for our cinematics, which are mostly in-game cinematics, all the campaign cinematics use the game engine, but run obviously a higher fidelity. But it really captures real performances, and that's important this time around because we have a lot of people in the game this time around, a lot of real faces and a lot of real characters. And more importantly, a lot of really meaningful things are going to happen in this game that require that level of intensity between the actors. So I think they're good. Ultimately, that's your guys' decision to make, and your opinions are obviously more important than mine because I'm biased. We have a question in the back.
And we have mics now.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, at the end of Halo 3, the Covenant was pretty much in tatters.
Yes.
And the elites were, well, I wouldn't say properly allied with the UNSC, but you know they were on the same side. Does the game actually explain why the Covenant are back and why the elites are our enemies again?
Yeah, I'll give you a little sneak preview of it. You definitely saw the Covenant fighting the Prometheans there, and the Prometheans were basically objecting to their presence on Requiem, which is the world that this story takes place on. If you think about human society and human civilization, we're hardly monolithic. There's lots of different cultures, there's lots of different factions. You're going to find out about this particular faction, and they are a particularly virulent form of the former Covenant with some really, really enthusiastic, shall we say, religious beliefs about the Forerunners. And they never gave up hope. And you can only imagine their delight and surprise when they find out that at least some of their myths and some of their legends about the Foreigners turn out to be true. And that's something they discover on Requiem, initially in a surprising way. But the game will have a few twists and turns, and you'll definitely find out more about that, both in the campaign and in Spartan Ops. That's actually a big part of the Spartan Ops story.
Thank you.
Guy with the white t-shirt over here. Hello. He was asking what it's like to bring the Spartans back and recreate Master Chief's armor in better definition. I mean, obviously the armor has changed, and there's a couple of canonical reasons for that, but they are actually small compared to the simple fact that we changed the technology. We made some improvements to the graphics rendering pipeline so that we could have more polygons and animation happening on the screen. And the rest of it is artistic design. We have a lot of amazingly talented artists. And they worked very hard on the Master Chief, of course, who's pivotal there, but also the Spartan 4s. And you guys are starting to see some of the Spartan 4 armor permutations. And another one in the back.
Question actually at the back there, Frank, sorry.
How do you go about adding new elements such as vehicles and weapons to the world while still making it feel like Halo?
You know, that is both the toughest challenge and the most exciting challenge. Halo is a sandbox game, and obviously Bungie created an amazing suite of weapons and vehicles and powers and abilities, and we brought most of those back, obviously, as you'll see. But the biggest decision that we had to make was to add a new villain and a new antagonist in the form of the Prometheans. And that's the first time an entire class of bad guys has been added to the game since 2001 when it first launched. And with them comes a giant selection of new sandbox items. Now, it's easy to come up with ideas, and it's easy to create these things, and it's more difficult to render them. It's more difficult to animate them. But the hardest part of all is balancing them. And I just want to reiterate that the sandbox balance in the game takes Halo's balanced feel very, very seriously. And while the Promethean weapons have some fairly unique attributes, they definitely fit cleanly and neatly into the Halo sandbox. And I think when you guys are picking your loadouts for your Spartans, you're going to, for the first couple of months, have fun experimenting with the various options at your disposal and the similarities and differences between the old and the new. We have one in the middle.
Hi there. Will Master Chief have a jetpack in this game?
I can confirm that there will be jetpacks in multiplayer. I'll tell you that now. It has been nerfed a little bit since Reach, and it doesn't behave in exactly the same way. You can't, for example, hover at the apex of your jump and rain grenades and sadness on the civilians below. But the jetpack is still in the game, and I'm not going to talk about campaign because we already got close to spoiling a bunch of stuff for you there. So.
Is there ranked multiplayer matchmaking in terms of like Halo 2 and Halo 3 where it's 1 to 50? Also, is the networking going to be peer-to-peer or are you going to have dedicated servers?
That's two questions, so you can pick one. No, I'll answer them both. The networking is peer-to-peer. It's obviously an Xbox Live staple, and there's some really good reasons for it. I realize that PC gamers like having dedicated servers, and there's some other games that have dedies. Peer-to-peer gives us a sort of broader reach into the existing ecosystem. We've made some tuning to the network performance, and hopefully you guys will like the improvements. But it's definitely peer-to-peer. And your other question was ranking system. We'll have more to talk about skill-based ranking later. There is an experience system that's connected to both Spartan Ops and the competitive multiplayer. But we'll talk more about options that are available to people who are obsessed with their skill ranking later on and closer to launch. And
hello. Can you confirm that you've got 4-player co-op campaign, and who will the other 3 players play as?
Yeah, I can confirm we have 4-player co-op campaign, and of course Spartan Ops supports up to 4 players, and Odad also supports matchmaking, so that if you're behind in the series, as it were, you can find people to play through it with you, and that's pretty much the ideal experience, because then you can play on higher difficulty levels. And the first part of your question was, who are you going to beat? That's it. So when we did Halo 3, you had the Master Chief and the 3 elites, and they had kind of a backstory, but it didn't have any severe impact on the game, other than the Arbiters, obviously. And the decision was made very, very early that creates too many problems for a story that's supposed to be about the Master Chief this time. So the reality is that everyone is the Master Chief, and so your big brother doesn't win that argument every time. And one of the funny things that happens in the game is you see the cryo chamber with all the cryopods, and of course your big brother gets to start in the center one and talk to Cortana, and the other 3 guys have to stand in theirs at the side watching from the cheap seats, as it were. Yep.
Obviously, Bungie were obviously quite big on multiplayer. I
Yeah.
was just wondering, internally in 343, A, was there any nervousness that you felt living up to that kind of legacy? And B, internally, what kind of time split would you say you spend between something like the campaign and multiplayer?
There wasn't any nervousness at all. It was more like naked terror. Bungie created such an amazing set of games and experiences and features that stepping into those shoes was genuinely scary. But and there was pressure from the fans as well. Like, we're a new studio, we haven't shipped a full game. Will we respect Halo's legacy? Will we be able to do a good job? And we won't know that until November 6th, honestly. I'll try and get down on the floor and ask you guys what you think. Be nice. I'm very, very fragile. But we won't know until November 6th. And so we were scared. The one thing that we did get out of that experience was that they had built this universe that people loved. And they'd built a lot of systems and a lot of feel and a lot of gameplay that we were able to use and expand upon. So we didn't have to solve the problem that a new franchise might have. I mean, you guys know, amazing looking shooters come out every year, and some of them do really well and some of them don't, because there's some basic principles that they maybe didn't get right or people didn't like. We don't have to worry about some of the core of that. What we have to worry about is respecting what makes Halo great and making sure that we're doing service and honor to that legacy and building on it in intelligent ways. So no nervousness, just terror. And what was the other part of your question was? Oh, Halo's a sandbox game, so internally we actually kind of split even more towards 50-50, a holistic experience, because we have Spartan Ops too. So we kind of treat it as a universe, and it's hard to sort of parcel out which assets go where, and you can't really pull it out like that. Obviously, we have dedicated multiplayer designers, but remember, engineers are working on all of these things, artists are working on all of these pieces, and so it's hard to parcel it out. But you know, obviously, multiplayer becomes more and more important as the game goes on. But campaign is a huge part of Halo, so we can't ever let that go.
We've got time for one more question.
One more question. Make it good.
Hello, I'm just going to quickly ask a question. Just want to say, I saw the Prometheans, and they are absolutely scary, so I just want to say, brilliant job on that. It's about recon armor, I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
Will that be unlockable?
If you send me an email, I will unlock recon armor for you in Halo 3.
Okay.
All right? All right, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks to the Microsoft crew for setting this up, and thanks to the backstage guys for making everything run smoothly. And I encourage you all to go downstairs, check out the game, play it. If you see me, feel free to tell me literally what you think about it. We really want to know. And the code you're playing downstairs is pretty close to finished. It's about a month old, so it's a much newer experience than other people have played, and I encourage you to enjoy it. Thank you.